Hi.
That's Courtney. She's up next. Okay, here we go.
All right, you are on.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Like Rich said, my name is Courtney Scarborough, and I'm going to be covering proposal writing with you this morning. So I hope to give you some good tips on that. So let's jump right in. Does it matter which button I press? Okay, got it. All right, so my aim is to accomplish 3 things with you today. First, to help you understand the functions of a dissertation proposal. That's why you're required to write one, what it does. Second, to show you the elements of a dissertation proposal. That's the content that goes into it, and I'm going to be spending some time discussing topic development as well. And last, how to help you organize your proposal writing process. So where the content goes, how it's structured. And we're going to be looking at some sample proposals and breaking them down into their little parts to examine where all this information goes, how it's organized. All right. So what's the purpose of writing a proposal? First, it's a blueprint for your actual dissertation. It kind of lays out the groundwork from which you're going to build your research on. It's kind of like writing a recipe before you actually bake the cake. So you know what you're going to do before you do it. And it's a way to gain further insight into your research project. Usually you're going to have to write your entire literature review, either as part of your proposal, or it's a good idea just to write it anyway so you get a sense of the literature in the field, to read what other scholars have to say about your topic. You need to know the context from which you're going to build your research from, the background information, what others have done in your field. So that's a really important part. And to show your committee members you've done your homework and are prepared to undertake this project. They're there to guide you along the way. They want to make sure that you know what you're going to be doing before you do it. All right. So, before you begin writing, there are 2 essential things you need to know. First, the problem you're going to be researching, your topic, and your research questions. And second, who your chair is. You need to know which professor or which entire committee, I think there's a committee that looks at your proposal, is going to be guiding you through your project. So with that said, I want to go over topic development a little bit. For many, it's the most challenging part, one of the most challenging parts of a dissertation. I think oftentimes when we start out, we have just a really broad idea of what it is we want to do, and it's really important to narrow your focus to a manageable size. So, for example, maybe you're interested in the idea of aggression in families. So I like to think of this topic as a tree. And you want your dissertation to be a leaf on that tree. You need to narrow it down that much. So we break it down a little more. So we break down it to microaggression in biracial families. So that's still, it's getting there, but it's still a branch. It's important to narrow it even further. So I narrowed it down to the development and validation of microaggression in biracial families. So I broke down this part further. So I think that's a pretty good area to start with as far as a topic for a dissertation. This person will probably need to define further what development and validation mean in the context of microaggression, but it's a good place to start. Once you have a topic about this about this scope, I really suggest formulating some research questions to help guide you, to help show you what it is that you're going to do. I came up with just one for this topic. What types of microaggression are unique to the experiences of biracial individuals by family members? So this is something that the writer or the researcher is going to have to answer in order to get to this, this larger problem here, the leaf. And so I think it's important to come up with several research questions because this is something concrete that you can accomplish and investigate without getting too lost. I have some questions that I came up with to help you develop a strong research question and a narrow topic. These are all important things to consider when you're coming up with your topic. Do I know the field and its literature well? Have you read widely and deeply into this scientific community and what other scholars have been investigating? What are the important research questions in my field? What's relevant right now within the community that you're studying within? You don't want to research something that was relevant 20 years ago, and you may not know that it was only relevant 20 years ago until you start reading the current literature. What areas need further exploration? Could my study fill a gap, lead to greater understanding? So could my study contribute something that hasn't yet been spoken for?
Bless you.
Has a great deal of research already been conducted in this topic area? You'd be surprised. I thought when I was writing my master's thesis that it was the most novel idea ever. And I found out that people had already researched pretty close to what I was interested in researching. There's a lot out there to uncover. But at the same time, I don't think this is necessarily like a handicap, because if you do find something that has already been done that you were interested, it's good to look at it and see, well, what else could I contribute to that area? There's always more that can be researched in a certain area. Can you look at it from a slightly different angle? What's going on?
Time out. Time out. Time out. Technical difficulty.
It looks like your mic is working.
We're getting a lot of complaints I can't hear on the Skype thing.
Oh, should I move this closer to me?
No, that's for the.
Oh, that's for the video. Okay.
Oh,
Do you want me to move to this side?
you're muted.
Who's muted?
The computer was.
Oh, so it was the thing.
Skype land, can you hear now?
Crap. Okay, hold on.
Yeah, so what you're doing here is not associated with that.
So I did mute it. It was an accident, everybody.
You mute here, it doesn't mute here. Somehow it's not any better.
Okay.
So this computer is what's picking Courtney's voice up through this mic?
This one.
Yeah, that's
Not that one.
this one.
All right, so everybody's good?
This one or that one?
Who's on first?
Okay. We will
All right,
continue.
you're back. Let's get into.
All right, thank you. Sorry, everybody. Okay.
Okay. Has this study been done before? If so, is there room for improvement? Is the timing right for this question to be answered? Is it a hot topic or is it becoming obsolete? So again, you want your study to be current, relevant today. Okay, and all of these questions on the last slide point to this really important idea that research and academic writing is a conversation. I know it seems like something we do alone in the dark, but it's actually something that you're contributing to a larger community. So it's not something that you just need to be passionate about, but other scholars as well need to be interested in your topic. So again, more generally, other tips on finding your topic, and this kind of points back again to the last slide. Read current scholarly journal articles in your field. And when I mean current, I would go no further than 5 years back. I've been told 10 years back is okay. But there is so much information out there. It's so easy to get lost in it. And to put a constraint, and I'm sure Scott can show you how to do this, to put a constraint on a timeline, like on looking back only 5 years, searching back only 5 years on a database is a good way to kind of narrow your selection of articles to read. All right, look at other dissertations in your field. And you can, again, there should be a database that you can access dissertations from, access to get dissertations from. I really like this one because I can see then the scope of other projects, the research questions that other students have explored, and I can see how the dissertation is structured and organized. And finally, talk to your professors. What are they researching? A lot of times also I find that professors can point me to some of the reputable scholars in the field that I'm interested in studying. They know the hot people in the moment that are looked highly upon. And they can also maybe point you to some gaps in research that need to be filled. Okay, and finally, last slide for topic development. These are more practical questions to ask yourself. Can I get the data I need to address this problem? Is it realistic? If you're interested in studying, I don't know, children who have immigrated here within the last 2 years and are in local elementary schools, can you get access to them? And can you get access to enough of them? If you can't, then you need to change who your participants are. Can I get the data in the time frame allotted for my dissertation? Collecting data takes time. How much time do you have realistically to get this accomplished? And it's important to think that through as you're writing your proposal and mapping ahead what it is that you need to do. Am I addressing one research problem or a multitude of problems? This kind of goes back to the idea of the tree. Am I doing a research project that is a whole branch, or am I focusing on one leaf? It's important that you narrow your topic so it doesn't get overwhelming. And can I articulate my research problem in a sentence or two? I think this one is really important because in our head we have all of these ideas and they make sense to us. And then when we try to articulate them and say them out loud, it doesn't come out right. At least that happens to me a lot. And it's really important that you're able to express what it is that you're going to be focusing on specifically and clearly. And so that's another important part of topic development. Okay? And I think these are questions that really can't be answered overnight. It takes time. It takes a lot of reading and a lot of searching to really come down to a decision on a specific research problem. You may need to go back and forth a lot and think through and change your problem and tweak it here and there in order to make it realistic so that you can complete it within a given time frame. All right, so we're going to move on to the actual proposal. My first suggestion before you begin writing is to find good models. There is no one proposal model that the university follows. A proposal can be 5 pages long, it can be 90 pages long. It all depends on your chair and what they expect. If it is if they do require it to be 90 or 100 pages long, usually it's essentially the first 3 chapters of your dissertation, like the introduction, the literature review, and the methodology. So then after that, all you need to do is collect your data and analyze it, and then you're done. If it's 5 pages long, I think oftentimes it's called a pre-proposal, where you'll have to submit that first, and then after that's approved, write the 100-page proposal. The ones we're going to be looking at are actually pre-proposals. And so ask your chair if they have examples. Know what your expectations are, what they expect of you. Okay. So even though this is a really diverse genre, there are some elements in a proposal that are in every proposal. We have an introduction and review of the literature. So, in other words, what your topic is and what others in your field have to say about your topic. So and when I say review of the literature, I mean you need to summarize what other people have said in order to build your own argument. It's set up your argument. Also, a statement of the problem or purpose of the study. I think I put that up here with this, but it's a separate element. What your topic is. What it is you're going to research. And the significance of your study. What contributions will you bring to the scientific community? What is the significance of this new information that you're going to bring, that you're going to produce? And finally, a discussion of your methodology. And I'm not going to be getting into that. I'm going to leave that for Rich. But I am going to be focusing on these 3 up here. So I want to break these 3 down even further to something really simple. So a typical pattern that I see a lot of introductions follow the beginning of a proposal is they have a statement of purpose, known information, unknown information, and your proposed solution. Not necessarily in that order. So what we're going to do next is we're going to read through a real proposal, and actually it's from a student at this school, and it's a little bit long, so bear with me, but first we're going to read through the whole thing, and then we're going to go back and see how they organized all of these pieces. Okay, here we go. So example 1. This study seeks to construct a systematic way of measuring microaggression that occurs within families, particularly for biracial, bi-ethnic individuals. D.W. Su defines racial microaggressions as brief and commonplace daily verbal, behavioral, and environmental indignities, whether intentional or unintentional, that communicate hostile, derogatory, or negative racial slights and insults to the target person or group. Due to the unconscious nature of microaggressions, well-intentioned individuals may engage in prejudices and commit subtle discriminatory acts without conscious awareness. Biracial identity development and stage models implicate the role of the family in the awareness of differentness, struggle for acceptance, and feelings of disloyalty. Biracial individuals may undergo a more complicated identity development process than monoracial people, and therefore may suffer from greater psychosocial distress. Nadal theorized that multiracial microaggressions may be more covert and frequent in families because monoracial family members may not be aware of their monoracial biases. It is unknown the impact microaggression can have on psychosocial distress and well-being. However, qualitative research has suggested that microaggression inflicted within the family may have a greater impact than microaggression inflicted by a stranger. However, no assessments currently exist to quantitatively measure the experiences of microaggression within families. And then after that, that's all one paragraph. After that, this person states their hypothesis. I've only listed 3 of them, just to shorten it a little bit, but they have the analysis of the literature review and focus group discussions will yield themes representing types of microaggression unique to the experiences of biracial individuals by family members, which will overlap with expert reviewers' feedback. All WAM domains will demonstrate good internal consistency, reliability into the validation sample, and convergent validity of the WAM domains will be shown through positive correlations with the racial and ethnic microaggressions scale. All right, so that's their proposal. And actually, that is their entire pre-proposal. After that, they do have a methodology section, which is about probably the same length as what I just read. And that's it. That's their whole proposal. So let's go back now and look for those 4 elements that we were talking about before: the purpose, the known information, the unknown information, and the proposed solution. So first, right away they state their purpose, and I see this really frequently in proposals. There's nothing before it. They just say right away what they're going to do and what their aim is. This study seeks to construct a systematic way of measuring microaggression that occurs within families, particularly for biracial, bi-ethnic individuals. Very clear. Okay, next. They define key terms. Sue defines racial microaggressions as brief and commonplace daily verbal, behavioral, and environmental indignities, whether intentional or unintentional, that communicate hostile, derogatory, or negative racial slights and insults to the target person or group. And I really like that they defined microaggressions right away. They assumed that it's for a general audience, even though they know they're writing for their chair, and their chair probably knows what microaggressions are. Your chair needs to know that you know what it is, that you understand it in the same way that they understand it. So it's really important to define important terms like that, even though you're assuming that your reader or your chair already knows that term. So next, we have known information. Due to the unconscious nature of microaggressions, well-intentioned individuals may engage in prejudices and commit subtle discriminatory acts without conscious awareness. So a little bit of background information on microaggressions, what we know about it so far. And then we have more known information, but this time we get down to what's known about the biracial aspect of the proposal or of the topic. Biracial identity development stage models implicate the role of the family in the awareness of differentness, struggle for acceptance, and feelings of disloyalty. So I also want to point out something I really like about this proposal is the way they use their quotations. They use quotations here to kind of highlight important terms in their paper. They don't have, this huge block quote of what someone else has said. They use it strategically so that these words stand out, that they're important and relevant for their paper. I know I often see students that basically put a whole quote of what someone else has said that's like half a page long, when it's really important to actually paraphrase or summarize that information and leave the quotations for the really special information. Okay, next, more known info. Biracial individuals may undergo a more complicated identity development process than monoracial people, and therefore may suffer from greater psychosocial distress. And I like this also because it kind of implies that there's more of a need to further study biracial microaggressions in a biracial family than in a monoracial family. And I put in this as an example, but it's actually, I think, more like it's more supportive evidence. It's supporting this idea, showing that more scholars support this same idea that there's a need to study biracial families. Nadal theorized that multiracial microaggressions may be more covert and frequent in families because monoracial family members may not be aware of their monoracial biases. So these are the same two ideas, but showing that they're supported by more than one scholar. Okay, now they're getting into unknown information. It is unknown the impact microaggression can have on psychological distress and well-being. However, qualitative research has suggested that microaggression inflicted within the family may have a greater impact than microaggression inflicted by a stranger. So this is actually the unknown information right here. Here we get into, but we do know that there have been qualitative studies on this topic that have yielded certain results. However, no assessments currently exist to quantitatively measure the experiences of microaggression within families. So this is unknown information as well, but it points back to their initial purpose that they said in their first sentence. So it's kind of, we can assume that, okay, this is what they're going to investigate. They're going to come up with a quantitative method for measuring microaggression. And then, I'm not going to read the hypothesis again, but it's their way of describing their proposed solution. This is just one way to do it. In the next model, they don't separate it into a different section. They include it with the other content. So there's more than one way to structure your hypothesis. Okay.
We're going to give you 10 minutes to answer questions.
Okay. I'm almost done. Okay. So I have one more example of a proposal that has all the same information in it, but it's organized a little bit differently. Okay. So let's read through it. The purpose of this study is designed to address two major deficits in knowledge regarding the adaptation of immigrant students to the U.S. school environment, including a lack of information about the impact of immigration on students at different age grade levels, and the absence of longitudinal data regarding post-migration adjustment. Researchers have identified a number of specific areas in need of study, including disruptions in social network relations, processes of acculturation, and the effects of perceived prejudice and discrimination. Recent overviews of the literature suggest that most immigrant children adapt successfully. However, Cao and Tienda found that immigrant adolescents had lower self-efficacy and were more alienated from peers than non-immigrants in a large national survey. Potential antecedents of adjustment in immigrant students include family and peer values, language difficulties, socioeconomic status, biculturalism, and student-parent acculturation conflict. In general, however, researchers agree that the current data are insufficient and inconclusive. The focus of the proposed study is on the emotional, behavioral, and academic adjustment of immigrant children and adolescents in relation to their exposure to family stress and their availability of social support following migration. The hypothesis is that higher levels of family stress and lower levels of social support will be associated with poorer adjustment. Okay, so let's go back and go through it. So just like the last model, this writer starts out right away with their purpose. The purpose of this study is designed to address two major deficits in knowledge regarding the adaptation of immigrant students in the U.S. school environment. And what do you know? Their purpose is to fill in a gap of unknown information. In the same sentence, they've included their purpose and unknown information. The unknown information is a lack of information about the impact of immigration on students at different age grade levels and the absence of longitudinal data regarding post-migration adjustment. Unknown information. Researchers have identified a number of specific areas in need of study, including disruptions in social network relations, processes of acculturation, and the effects of perceived prejudice and discrimination. So now they've listed specific areas in need that need to be investigated as far as immigrant adaptation. And I think each of these aspects that they've listed could be a dissertation in itself. All right, so now finally we get some known information. Recent overviews of the literature suggest that most immigrant children adapt successfully. And now here we have known information, but a different perspective. However, Cao and Tienda found that immigrant adolescents had lower self-efficacy and were more alienated from peers than non-immigrants in a large national survey. So this perspective kind of contradicts what these researchers are saying. Potential antecedents of adjustment. Oh, so here we have examples of areas that areas of difficult adjustment for immigrant students. Potential antecedents of adjustment in immigrant students include family and peer values, language difficulties, socioeconomic status, biculturalism, and student-parent acculturation conflict. I'm sorry, this would be like sources of post-migration adjustment. In general, however, researchers agree that the current data are insufficient and inconclusive. So pointing out that there still needs to be more evidence to support these findings up here. So here they narrow their topic. The focus of the proposed study is on the emotional, behavioral, and academic adjustment of immigrant children and adolescents in relation to their exposure to family stress and their availability of social support following migration. And then finally, their proposed solution. The hypothesis is that higher levels of family stress and lower levels of social support will be associated with poorer adjustment. So just to recap, both of these proposals included all of these elements, and no more than these elements too. There was no unnecessary information. So they had their purpose, their known information, what other people had said about their topic, and their specific topic. Unknown information, what others have not said, what there is a lack of, and they had their proposed solution, what they were going to do to fill this gap. That's it. Any questions?
One question.
Yeah.
So are you telling me I can go tell my chair that my proposal can be a page? Just kidding. I'm saying, should this, like the lit review and everything, that should take a lot longer.
Yeah, well, it
I would love to go back to that.
yeah, it depends. You need to check with your chair. These were examples of more what I would call pre-proposals, which in some disciplines are required. And usually if you have a pre-proposal, like one of this length, and once that's approved, then you write the whole 70-page one with the really long literature review. But even if you're going to write the really long one, it still needs to include all of those elements at the beginning, at the introduction. The introduction does need to include what other scholars have said, just not to the extent that it's going to be in the actual literature review. Yeah.
For your proposal, I thought you also had to include the methodology as part of your proposal.
Yes.
When you do it.
Yes, you do. And Rich is going to be covering that aspect of it.
Okay.
Okay? But yes, in all of these proposals, they did have a methodology section after that. But the methodology section wasn't very long. It was maybe no longer than the examples I had up there. Okay?
Oh,
Uh-huh.
repeat the question so the people at home.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
No worries. I have an online question from somebody online. How do I decide which definition to use? There are usually so many from so many different sources.
Ah, that's a good question. I would go back, well, which definition are you going to use? Which definition are you going to follow in your research study? Or I would go back to the original one, see how far back this term goes, and would build on the original one. And I would also check with your chair to see which definition is acceptable to them, which one they agree with.
Isn't it your dissertation though? Don't you just say, I define it as this definition?
You can do it. You
Repeat
can,
that.
yeah. Oh, the question was, it's your dissertation, so can you define it?
But I'm saying, like, you're saying, I'm using this
Yeah.
definition.
Yeah, you could change the definition and make it your own definition, but you need to demonstrate where you got that from. Like, I'm going to build on so-and-so's definition, but I'm also going to incorporate this other person's definition aspect of the definition too. So you just need to be clear as far as where you're building your definition from, or who you're building your definition from.
I think Jan had a question.
I was thinking about the methodology. So if you know the topic you're researching, but you don't have the data collected yet, you define methodology at that point.
So the question is regarding methodology. Say you know what you're saying. You know what participants you're going to use.
I know the topic of my study,
You know the topic,
but I don't know where to get the data yet.
but you don't know where to get the data yet. As far as finding the data, that would be something I would talk to your chair about, and just think a little bit practically about it. Like, you have your topic, what type of population is relevant to your topic, connects to your topic, and is that population, available on campus or in local schools here or in this area, or are they accessible from on the internet and social networking, and also what kind of information you need to get from them. Is it a survey or is it more extensive, like a long interview? So it really depends on what your topic is and what kind of participants connect to that topic. So, yeah.
We have another online question. Where research questions would go before the hypotheses? Its own section, or in a research question then hypotheses section?
I
don't know if I got that right.
Yeah. So, do I need to repeet the question?
No, the speaker.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me? I know you can.
So the question is that does the research questions, where you list your research questions, does that need to go in a separate section? I don't think so. Again, I would check with your chair and see what they want. They may want something really specific. but I would put it before your hypothesis. And to me, it would be best to put it kind of towards the end of your introduction, but before your hypothesis. So after you've reviewed the literature and given some background information on your topic to list your research questions.
Can't you just include your research questions as part in the section, part with your hypothesis?
Yeah.
Repeat the question.
So can you include your research questions within your hypothesis section? I think that's acceptable too. Again, this genre, in some ways, writing a proposal, it's really flexible and there's a lot of freedom from which you can organize it. You know, you need to think about what is the best way to organize it for my topic. But at the same time, you also need to check with your chair and see, you know, if there's any constraints that they're going to impose on writing it. So it's kind of, you have this freedom to work with it in any way you want, but you need to check in with your chair too.
And this question assumption. In your research, as you're reading in journals or in other dissertations prior, they all kind of seem to follow that same structure within that same field. So as you're doing, I found, as you're doing your literature research or into other dissertations, you'll see the flow of their dissertation, and it seems to be like the acceptable norm within that field. We're in the business field, and ours is a little different than in a psych or education.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point to bring up, is that in different disciplines, the dissertation is structured differently, and that's why I really suggest looking through dissertations in your particular field to get a sense of how they're structured, or even how things are worded. Things can be worded differently depending on the discipline. You know, maybe one discipline uses more passive voice, but then one allows active voice. Some disciplines even have started allowing, like, you can use I as well. Those are in more qualitative studies. But yeah, look at recently published dissertations. And that's a really helpful thing to do when you're figuring out how to structure your own writing.
I have one more question. This might be for later, but in the dissertation section of the library, like I'm in the leadership program, how do I locate the leadership ones? Because it seems like they're all just together, and I can't figure out the rhyme or reason to how to find just leadership dissertations.
Yeah.
Research on following, but I'm like, is there an easy way to do it? Like, you're like, oh, here's the section.
As the librarian.
Yeah, I'm sure Scott will know exactly how to answer that for you.
Okay, I'll hold that till later.
So, yeah.
That's a good question. Okay, another online question. She apologizes, she must have missed that part, but did you say that you can or cannot use the word I in your proposal?
Oh, all right. So, first of all, check with your chair. It depends on the discipline. For quantitative studies, I would say probably not. But for qualitative studies, it is becoming a little more flexible, and I have seen the use of I in qualitative studies before. But this is kind of a recent development change, so I would check with your chair first. I know when I was writing mine, I was allowed to use it. And if you are allowed to use it, I think it's great because it makes writing it a little bit easier.
I got another online question. Does your center ever review dissertation proposals? I know you used to, but I'm not sure if that's still an option.
It is.
No.
Unfortunately, it's not an option
Not
at this time. We're hoping that will change and we'll be able to figure out a way to include it.
Yeah, we just don't have the manpower.
Yeah.
It's just, basically, it's me. I'm full-time. Courtney's only half-time. And there's over 3,000 students. We just can't. We either have to help the coursework or with the dissertations. And then until we get some kind of help, we can't.
Yeah.
Cannot make any kind of help.
You can do anything.
I know. But again, we're aiming for that. So we might as well, before my boss shows up, we might as well say that we have been pushing to try to get the school to start a dissertation support center, just like the tutoring center, but for dissertations. We would work with the faculty, the students, set up timelines, benchmarks to get you guys through this, because it's a serious thing. So, but again, talk to your program directors and your professors. Maybe we can start a grassroots petition or something.
Would that be Dr. Baker for education?
Yeah. So program directors, it goes up, right? They tend to listen to students. They do. They will listen to you. So if they get enough of your voices, who knows? That's it, maybe?
Oh, wait, we have one more question.
Last question.
Go ahead.
I noticed that, and I guess for every discipline is different, but I didn't see a research model in any examples of the proposal. So I guess the question is, do you have to have a research model as part of your proposal?
You mean like a theoretical framework?
Yes.
That's a really good question. These are both quantitative studies, so I don't know if it's as necessary in a quantitative study. If you're doing a qualitative study, then yes, you would want to include like a framework that you're working within and define that as part of your proposal. Yeah.
All right, let's call it okay.
All right.
All right, we're going to take